Yes.
Can you identify these everyday sounds?
Welcome to Daily Space Weather Videos. I'm your spaced out, crippled host, smAsho. And as forecasted, there's a sunspot brewing, possibly two, possibly even three. So we're looking at the colored magnetogram. And you can see this plage, it's right in the Earth-facing region. We do see some X-ray hotspots there, as well as, well, hotspots on all the views. So you can see some areas rising up here under my pointer, as well as here nearer to the equator. And no comment yet whether it's cycle 24 or cycle 25 activity. Actually, this one here is cycle 25 activity. This one here is cycle 25 activity. And this one here is undefined, as the fields are nearly latitudinal from each other. Here's a view in 171 angstroms. Now we can see this due to the Gong 2 data. That's how I knew this was brewing. It wasn't through looking through stereo A scopes or anything like that. I did not expect this plage here to form, although I don't expect that to be a sunspot, but I expect a sunspot over here, somewhere, one of these two spots, as those are organizing fields. Now, if you view our videos every day, you would have seen this coronal mass ejection yesterday, and if not, you would not have. This happened on the 12th, again, yesterday, around 4:30 Universal Time. There's that coronal mass ejection. It does appear to have an Earth-facing component, as viewed on the LASCO C3. I don't know why forecasters missed that. This forecaster didn't miss it. Here are those X-ray hotspots we were talking about. And there's a date stamp so you can see all of that. And this is the GOES X-ray imager. You see that plage in the Earth-facing region, not emitting a whole lot of X-rays, not a high level of X-rays or anything like that. But these areas here are looking pretty strong. So those are things to watch in the coming days. Were you familiar with the mission? Well, we're not going to read it, but there are links in the description. If you want to understand the smAsho mission, please read. Now, this video is partially produced by our patrons. So thanks, patrons. If you're not on Patreon yet, well, what are you waiting for? It's $9.99 per month. And don't join that $1 level, folks. It's going to evaporate on Halloween. Don't scare the crap out of yourself by not being a patron. You can also donate on PayPal if you like. And thanks everybody who's been clicking on the Hemp Lucid links. We appreciate that. There's traffic coming in. That's a good thing. The sales have changed a little bit. There's a little bit of a refitting going on here on the website. We like it. On this harvest moon and Friday the 13th. Leave us a comment, including an image of your favorite knife. Perhaps a kitchen knife, Michael Myers style. Anyway, different sales now going on whole seed CBD hemp suspension, hemp seed oil suspension. So check that out. And that is your teaser. Thanks again, all of those folks who've been clicking on the links below the video. Tonight's Harvest Moon, folks. Full moon, Harvest Moon. Talking about the Farmer's Almanac. Now let's talk about disaster prepping in David Dubine's new book, Climate Revolution, where this channel, by the way, is cited. Let's talk about urban rooftop greenhouses. It's a super great idea. We're looking at doing some PVC projects for indoor growing here, as we have 3 aquariums running right now. One is just for algae, one has 1 fish, and one has 2 fish. So we're looking at integrated plant growing systems that are suspended above those aquariums. Please leave a comment if you know anything about integrating plants into aquaculture, as there are a ton of different ways to irrigate your indoor plants. And to make life easier, one of our windowsills has an algae tank in it. So that's part of our sort of innovative design here, as I am a complete noob when it comes to gardening. Again, this is from Climate Revolution. We've been citing this daily during this disaster preparedness month of September. That book by David Dubine and Bill and Richard Porter is linked below the video here at oilseedcrops.org. So get yourself a copy of that. It's full of information and great links to more information on top of more information on top of more information. Climate Revolution. Give me a ring, David. Sorry I missed your call. We were going to call you during the live stream, but it's not a live stream, folks. Don't be confused by that YouTube Premiere feature. All right, so we see a phi angle around 160. BT-BZ are, well, we got a very high BT, so magnetic fields are high, and the BZ is right in the middle there, indicating not a significant disparity in the North Pole versus South Pole magnetic association with your backyard. Solar wind density, 5.54 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed, 477 kilometers a second. It looks like a diffuse coronal hole wind stream is just setting in right now. And perhaps that solar wind speed has already peaked, something to keep an eye on throughout the day. And when I say eye on, the pun is intentional. 10.7 centimeter radial flux back up to 69. Solar minimum conditions, but not as minimum as they've been, as we've seen solar flux units all the way down at 66 in this 10.7 centimeter radial flux figure. This is my own, I just drew this orange line in here on the 70 mark, so you can see what solar minimum looks like on the 10.7 centimeter radial flux graph. If you're not familiar with the 10.7 centimeter radial flux, it is a measure of the outermost portion of the sun's corona, and it tends to follow very closely to sunspot number. KP index is at 3. Let's make sure that's refreshed. Pardon this temporary aside. Yep, KP still at 3, having been going up in the past 9 hours. Here's the magnetosphere movies. There's the density. And we do expect to see some striations here in the density. It should drop down toward the end. Last 2 hours there. And it looks like it refreshed on us. And you should see a small downtick in the density. Please note lower density is shown in light colors on this model. Here's the pressure. Pressure pretty low. 4 hours of data here, University of Michigan geospace model. Next we'll look at ground geospace magnetic perturbations. And there you have that. 4 hours of data there. The space modeling framework. As current passes through both ends of your planet. In and out, both ends, folks, believe it or not. Birkeland currents are going through your head right now, whether you like it or not. Okay, moving on. Here's the 6 hours of ionosphere, and it's looking pretty wobbly, especially up north. We see some pretty anomalous F0 areas there, or F1 layers, or F layers around, what is that, the Bay of Fundy? What's that thing called? That big it's not Hudson Bay, right? I don't know. Anyway, north central Canada there. And let's look at the latest image. So some oddities there in the ionosphere movie. It's looking oddly charged around the equator on the nighttime side and oddly discharged up around the north geomagnetic pole. Moving on. We do see some perturbations in the X-ray flux, as you would expect, as there's a little bit of activity kicking off. And for that, we thank you. If the sun were sentient, what statement would you say to the sun, or what question would you ask? Here's the GOES electron flux. And we're seeing a dip as we typically do when we see a coronal hole wind stream, as those are made primarily of protons. Relativistic electron flux has chilled out a little bit. There are still some charging hazards. There's the latest. Probably had some GPS errors over southern Florida there. If you're in Miami, please leave a comment. As I yell out, Milky Way Galaxy team for the win. Here's where stuff's located on this harvest moon and Friday the 13th. Seems like a great day to lay around and watch horror movies. As I have called off of my job. Yes, my job. One of my jobs. There's where things will be in 1 week. It looks like a gibbous waning to me. What do you think? Here's the GOES magnetometer data. And it's looking pretty spiky there as a bunch of protons are showing up, shaking things up a little bit from that most recent southern coronal hole. Here's the Gong 2 data, and you can see why we're predicting sunspots forming, because it's totally clear when you're looking at the magnetometers. And this is comprised of about 50 magnetometers located here on planet Earth, as well as at stereo B over here and stereo A over here. Let's look at a different view for once, as this view will show the B field being yanked around. Now the B field's being shown in blue here, folks. The Z fields are green and red, obviously. You're going to see that B field being pulled around on the eastern limb there. You can see a fold in it, as this is like a three-dimensional representation of the B field, and that's another indication that there are sunspots a brewing. If you didn't hear it anyplace else, you heard it here first. Here's what's going on above my head right now. The moon's about to set. I don't know why it's showing this phase, but whatever. in-the-sky.org, make your own sky map. Put in your location, figure out what's above your head. Last 24 hours, a deep quake in Afghanistan happened. Almost exactly 24 hours ago. 23 and a half hours ago. A 4.8 at a 258 depth. 4.6 a few hours later there, kicking off in the Mariana Islands. Not to be confused with the Marinara Sauce Islands, which don't exist yet. Here's a deep quake at the Izu Islands near Japan. Let's take a look at that one as it's at extreme depth. Just kind of hanging out in the ocean there, south of Japan, the main island. Moving on. Alright, next we've got a 4.7 at Trinidad. Oh, that's not Trinidad, that's Bolivia, my bad. Yeah, there's a 585-kilometer deep quake well into the mainland at Bolivia. Heads up Western South America. Somehow I doubt there's anybody from Western South America watching this video, but if that happened at the surface, that would be more like a 6 magnitude quake. Extreme depth there, 585 kilometers. 4.7 at Chile. As we've been warning the western portion of South America for weeks, deep quake after deep quake kicking off there. 5.1 at the Mid-Indian Ridge, near the triple plate boundary there. 4.6 in Indonesia. That one's at depth. 5.1 at the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Right in that same location again, folks. Check it out. This one they call the Mid-Indian Ridge, my bad. Mid-Indian Ridge. I can't read today. This is what happens when you break the largest bone in the human body. I didn't break it, folks. I just fractured it, I think. I'll be able to walk like a normal human in about 2 days, I think. Another deep quake at Chile. Here's a 4.9 out in the ocean toward Easter Island somewhere. One of the weirdest places in the world, this Southeast Pacific. Strange place, super desolate. Don't take your stand-up kayak to the Southeast Pacific. It's a little too weird. Here's a 4.4 at China. Here's a 4.1 at Mexico. Extreme southern Mexico there. 4.6 at Papua New Guinea. That one's at nearly 100 kilometers. 4.4 at Indonesia. That one at 461 kilometers. Lots of small quakes, folks. Still a 7 magnitude drought. 5.0 at Russia, 4.7 at Russia, and a 5.2 at the Philippines. So serious drought. Even a 6 magnitude quake drought. We're seeing like a shockingly low number of large quakes. Volcano rundown featuring Shivaluch back on the list, exploding, producing a 15,000 foot plume. Mount Aso still on the list, 9,000 foot plume there. And no, that's not a curse word, it's Mount Aso. How about Krakatoa issuing an ash advisory there? Apparently a 20,000 foot eruption is enough to issue an advisory, as it should be. Dacono exploding, 6,000 foot plume there. Sabancaya explosive activity producing intermittent emissions to 22,000 feet of altitude. Kapahue, don't feel a Kapahue, but no emissions detected. Alert levels have gone up there, as that one is new to the list. And lastly, Nevados de Chilean exploding, producing a 14,000 foot ash plume. Please don't pole vault Nevados de Chilean. Now, what the hell is that, you might be thinking? Well, what that is the 10 hectopascal winds over Antarctica. Who cares about that? I'll tell you who cares about it. Colin O'Brady cares about it. What does Colin O'Brady have to do with anything? Well, Colin O'Brady is the maniac who traversed the Antarctican continent on foot. If you want to read about a crazy trek, how about 1,000 miles dragging a sled across this thing? Which, if you weren't aware, here at the geographic South Pole, the altitude is about 10,000 feet higher than the altitude at the coast. So that is one crazy mission. Read up Colin O'Brady. He's also broken all kinds of mountaineering records. He's an ultra endurance athlete. If you want to hear about pushing the human body to the ultimate limit, check him out. By the way, it's about to be spring in just a few days, which is why we're getting sudden stratospheric warming over Antarctica, which is a normal thing that happens all the time. Every year this system does this gyration, and let's just look at the jet streams and call it a day. We've put it in high D mode for you folks. It's high D mode. Oh yeah. I got the planet upside down here. Let me just let this load. Here's the eastern world's jet streams, and they are going to be all over the place. All over the place. And here's the western world's. Please work. There we go. And there's going to be some very cold air around Lake Superior. I can tell just by looking at the jet stream map, folks. Please leave a comment if you're starting to understand the way meteorology really works. Lightningmaps.org is showing us some extreme storms hitting right in line with Lake Michigan. Great Lakes area getting hit day after day, past 3 days. And I'm going to include a link to this also here. What's up with that article? The lightning superbolts map. Check it out. This is where the superbolts strike, folks. They almost all strike over the oceans. Don't confuse them with regular lightning, which is why you don't see any over places like Florida. We had a lot of discussion about this on our Patreon, as well as in the YouTube comments, I think. So now we do see some land ones here over primarily Western South America, one of the weirdest places in the world too, and most likely places for a major earthquake. Also over the Mediterranean and the Eastern Atlantic being the biggest hotspot for the superbolts. Here's the pressure maps. How far can I zoom out? All right, that's cool. We'll advance that one day. Let that play through to about 24 hours. And we don't want the video to be too long, so let's keep going. AccuWeather, we apologize for doubting you. You're back on. Your new refurbished radar is just fine. We like it. It's better than the National Weather Service. So, there we go. We got the proper zoom now. Going to zoom in on that area over, which is sweeping right across Lake Michigan. It's going to sweep across the whole state from the way things look. And let's figure it out for sure by looking at the water vapor. Please leave a comment if your favorite character ever on a sitcom is Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys. There's a water vapor map, and we're going to zoom in on that area in a moment. Just wanted to show you this dry air sweeping across the country here. That's what's holding this atmospheric river in place, and it's going to make some serious convergences once again. Here's the zoom. I would expect to see some pretty cold air being swirled into there, and that's not going to be good news for folks who've already seen things like tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, probably hail, and damaging winds. And that this dry mass of air is just going to hold that in place. It's not going to be able to overcome the full force of this, as this is getting colder and colder as you go north, obviously. Let's move on to more stuff. Here's what's going on in the cloud layer. This is the NASA GOES shortwave radiation map. We can use this to see clouds, sort of, when it's too dark to use a visible satellite. And you're welcome for the magenta map. Who doesn't love a magenta map? Now we've got some unfortunate news for southern South Carolina, as there is another 20-inch rain forecast. There's a tropical system moving up northwest, and it's going to just crash right in. Check it out. There's the animation. Another 20-inch rain forecast for southern South Carolina. Not a welcome situation in that location. And get ready for another video to come out soon, folks. There's going to, probably by the time you've watched this, there might be a second video out. So go back to the YouTube channel, press like, subscribe, press notification, perhaps become our next patron, and understand the distinction between censored and sinkhole. Here's the bonus feature for you, folks. It's the 304 angstroms view. Expect an uptick in activity from not only the sun, but from this channel. So remember, when you're staring at the sun, don't drink it. If you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Get ready for those sunspots to form, and don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back, my femur be not fractured, and the atherosclerosis absent, and the inflammation absent from everybody. Down the hatch.